When I was reading about your story, you talk about when you're in ICU and you were couldn't sleep one night and you were watching a film.
Yeah, so when I was recovering in Ward 10, I couldn't sleep one night, and I thought, oh, I'll just flick through the channels and see if there's anything on. And in the last sort of 4 years before my transplant, I'd become disinterested in things, and I'd lost the passion for my hobbies. I didn't even really like playing music. The noise annoyed me, and I didn't really find things very funny. And even though I enjoyed spending time with my friends, sometimes I felt like I was a drain on people's company, and just always felt like a bit of a heavy weight was on my shoulders. So yeah, I was in hospital this night and I couldn't sleep, and I was flicking through the channels. I saw this film and it had Sandra Bullock in, and I thought, no, that's not my cup of tea. I won't find that funny at all. And it was called The Heat or something. So I put it on, and then within the first sort of 10 minutes, I was just laughing, and I hadn't felt like I'd laughed like that for actually years. And it was just such a release of emotion, and it brought a tear to my eye for sadness and joy, because I was just laughing out loud, and I couldn't just remember the last time that I'd done that. So it was quite a moment, and I knew that things were going to be a lot better for me in the future.
So when we talk about mental well-being, which clearly played a big part in what you went through, there's some very smart people at Google, as we know, and they have this expression, moments that matter, and it's about, they argue with patients, like winning and making as many of those count as possible. When we look at obviously your operation, that was the moment that mattered, and you know, the NHS and the healthcare professionals and everything was absolutely fantastic because it works. But do you think there were other key moments, you know, in the delivery of information where actually, if they'd have won those moments, it would have been better for you and better for other people that go through what you've been through?
Yeah, I think some of the anxieties and fears could have been alleviated if I'd have had more information and the delivery of that information. I mean, often if I've had a good relationship with a healthcare professional, it's because they've been able to really relate to me and show compassion. The ones that I haven't had a good relationship with are either people that might have had all the medical training in the world, but they just don't have those basic humanity skills of how to talk to patients and reassure them. And I think that makes a massive difference. I think it doesn't cost any money to show patients that consideration. And I think the right attitude to patient care is vital when you're in a role like that. So, yeah.
So when I was reading your one of your stories, one of the things that I found the most disturbing actually was the fact that you were so concerned about what the healthcare professional would think and your risk of not being on the waiting list. Yeah. You spoke about, you know, putting on a brave face and what took happened. So if you can talk me a bit through that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so when I was being considered to get put onto the transplant list, I had to go for a number of appointments to check my suitability. And I was so desperate to get onto this list that I'd just try and put a brave face on in front of the nurses so that they would think I was a suitable candidate for the operation. I was anxious inside because I thought, well, am I realistically well enough to go through this operation? I knew how dangerous it was, and sometimes, you know, the outcomes weren't great. So to me, I thought it's worth taking the risk anyway, because otherwise, what are my options? I wasn't going to spend the rest of my days on dialysis. So it was so important for me to get onto this list. And so I would quite often try and make an effort with my appearance to come across like I was weller than I actually was, just because if you present yourself well, people kind of get the impression that you are well inside as well. But this one meeting that I went to in Chorley, she was trying to give me some information about the transplant process. I was desperately ill at this point and full of toxins, and I could feel myself feeling quite nauseous in this appointment, and I wasn't digesting any of the information because I was feeling quite physically ill. And I just had to say to her, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't feel that well. And she passed me a sick bucket and I had to vomit halfway through this meeting. And I just was devastated because I thought there is no chance they're going to put me on the waiting list when they know how desperately ill I am at this stage. So yeah, I think sometimes I didn't really feel like I could be honest and really sort of express how I was feeling because I was so determined to get the transplant.
So one of the things that we as an industry can produce from time to time is like a Talk to Your Doctor toolkit, obviously tailored to the situation or the illness that's going through. It sounds like certainly if we include patients that have perhaps been through that before, that is a beneficial tool so you know what to expect and different things you might be looking out for as opposed to going in these blind.
It would have been helpful because a lot of the time you don't even know the questions that you need to be asking. And sometimes on hindsight you go home and think, oh, maybe I should have asked this or I should have asked that. But if you're not medically trained and it's a procedure that you know nothing about, then at the time you're receiving the information, it can be quite overwhelming, and especially depending on who's delivering the information, you might not always take it in. So I think if you had something to prepare you pre-consultation, it would be helpful.